All right, this morning I've got a couple of projects on the go at the same time, and they're both quite exciting. The first is a hippie hot tub, cowboy hot tub, whatever you want to call it, but it's a sort of a 2.0. It's the upgraded version of that. And the second project is happening behind me. I'll get onto that later.
So the story starts a year ago.
I'm at the local dump. Love the dump. Check this out. Just got a cast iron bathtub. It's got to be useful for something. This thing is insanely heavy. It's cast iron, which is what I wanted because you put a fire underneath it and heat it up. Nice. Really happy with this. I've got a view of the ocean out there. I'm going to dig a hole here and have a fire to heat this up. And we'll have a bath for free. Got enough wood in the forest to burn.
So I guess you'd call this Hippy Hot Tub 1.0. It's pretty basic. I just dug a hole in the ground for the fire and surrounded it with some old chunks of concrete I found. It wasn't bad. You'd occasionally get a bit of smoke in your face, but it was practically free, and the whole project was done in half a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the bathtub. I got it for like 15 bucks or something, and I put a fire underneath it. It's okay, it's all right doing that, but there are a few issues with it, mainly that you get this sort of hot spot in the middle of the bath, and it's a bit of a faff. You have to be quite careful with how much wood you put onto the fire, so it doesn't sort of, you want it to heat up quickly, but then you don't want to get in it and then get burnt. There are ways of getting around it. I know sometimes people will put a wooden bench at the bottom just to keep them off the cast iron, but I just thought, let's rethink the whole thing. With the old setup, I realised we weren't using the bath that much, mainly because it was just a bit of a hassle. So I want to make it really easy to use. The first thing I'm going to do is recess the bath into the deck, kind of, because I think it will look cool. Also, it will just be super easy to access. So the bus door, you can just see behind me there. So we'll just be able to come straight out the bus door, and then the bath will drop down here. The slight thing with it is there's an enormous amount of weight involved here. Like, that thing is cast iron, the tub's cast iron, it's probably like that thick. It weighs, I don't know, a lot, say 100 kg, which is 220 pounds. So that's a decent amount of weight, and it's also quite large. By the time you filled it with water, you'd easily get 200 litres in that. That's another 200 kilos. Put a heavy person in, you're getting up to easily 400 kg, which is 880 pounds. So it's a decent amount of weight. And so I don't want any of that weight kind of like pushing down on the deck. The deck, I don't want that involved in it. So what I'm going to do is support it around the outsides and support it from underneath. So it's like, well, it's probably going to be over-engineered, but that's okay.
Before going too far with this project, I just wanted to get the bath in position just so I can make sure that it easily meets up with the deck. There's just a couple of 4x4s under here supporting it, and that brings it up to pretty much the perfect height.
Yes. My first thought with this was to just lie the whole thing on top of a 4x4, nice and easy. The problem is this bottom is actually curved, so the whole thing's just going to rock and be completely unsafe. I did think about bolting it to a wooden block. It's got these little attachments here that would have been used for the claw foot, but they're quite narrow. So by the time you've got a bolt that fits in there, it wouldn't be that strong anyway. So that's not the best idea. So in the end, I thought I'll put posts and concrete them in at each corner, frame the whole thing with 2x6s, and in addition, I'll I'll put in some sort of wooden blocks underneath it, which will take some of that kind of downward weight.
I notched out 4 posts ready to take the 2x6 timber. There's no room for error here as the bath is thick metal and the wood needs to fit exactly. I built the frame around the bath first to make absolutely sure it fitted, and then very carefully positioned the posts before concreting them into place. I'm using the deck to hold the frame square whilst I concrete it in. Once the concrete's set, I'll get rid of the screws so no weight will be pulling down on the deck itself.
So I've got 3 posts concreted into the ground, and the 4th one I'm going to leave so that I can move the bath into position. Whilst the concrete sets, I'm going to get on with my second project. The second project I started this morning, and I'll show you why. So right where I'm standing here, lots of shelter, it's really warm. If I step out here, all of a sudden, it feels pretty cold. We get a lot of wind in New Zealand, especially in spring, and so I'm going to build something to stop that, or at least lessen it. Logically, you would think the best way to stop the wind is just to have a solid fence, and that's kind of what I thought. And the more I looked into it, the more that I saw that it creates turbulence. So as the wind hits the fence, it then goes upwards and then comes down. And that sounded kind of unrealistic to me, so I started looking more and more into it. And the more you think about it, it does make sense, I suppose. If you imagine a rock that's in a river, it doesn't stop the water just creates kind of like eddies and whirlpools and just a lot of turbulence around the rock. And that's what can happen with just a straight, flat fence. Apparently the best way is to allow some wind to go through it so that it just slows down the wind speed rather than stops it. They reckon somewhere between 30 and 50% of the wind should still be able to kind of flow through. And I've only just put this little bit up here, I did this morning. It already seems to, I think it's right. Thankfully, it does seem to be working. I can feel the wind coming through, but there's a big difference between standing here and standing where there aren't any panels. I'll show you. So this is my very unscientific test. Hold on, I'll take my hat off so you get the full effect, right? But if I'm standing here, it's not too bad. If I move around here, stand down here, it's definitely windier. Stand back here. There you go. It works. This is so good. It makes a huge difference. I can't believe how good it is actually. Like when you're standing near it, you can feel the wind still coming through, but I guess it's slower, and so you don't actually feel cold. You go the other side of that fence, it's freezing cold. It's great. Really good for spring. The concrete's getting there, so I'll get to work on the bath tomorrow. I've got to drill a hole through that thing, and it's cast iron, and it's about this thick. So I'm somewhat concerned about that, but hopefully it will be all right. So this is what's going to heat the water for the bathtub. Rather than just have the fire underneath the tub itself, I have seen people use copper, and they just make copper, bend it into a spiral, have a fire in the middle, and then that heats the water, and you plumb the copper pipes into the bath. And this is just a kind of more professional, I guess, more manufactured version of that. This is a beautifully made bit of kit. I'm really happy with this. All sort of stainless steel. You've got the coil in here, so you build your fire in here, and then the tubing goes around here, heats the water up, chimney out here. Really nice. So what I'm going to do now is line it up against the bath and work out where I need to drill the holes for these. These look like they've got little attachment things, so they'll kind of go, I guess one would go inside the bath, that one go outside, and a little tube leading to that. Same on that. And that'll be our bath heater. I just drilled a couple of holes in the bath for the water pipe, which was actually quite easy really. That was just with a normal metal drill bit, and now I'm going to use a carbide hole saw and see if I can get that through. I think this is going to be a bit harder. We'll see. That was so easy. I'm quite surprised. I don't know anything about metalwork, and I guess whatever that drill bit's made of, tungsten carbide, is a lot stronger than cast iron. It went through really easily, and there's a nice clean hole. So. You can see the thickness of the cast iron there. That hole saw had absolutely no problem going through that. Amazing.
Now the bath is in position and the holes are drilled, I'm putting in the final post. I left this until last so it would be easier to lift the bath into position.
I'm going to give the bath a clean while the concrete dries. It's really disgusting. It's all covered in grout and silicone from the previous owner, and then it's got all the shavings of the cast iron that I put in from drilling it. So I'll give it a bit of a wash. I'm going to sit the water heater next to the bath, but it needs to be brought up to the right height, and it also needs to be perfectly flat, and the land sort of slopes away a little bit round there. So I'm just going to use some offcuts I've got of 2x6 and just make up a little box. Maybe I might have to cut that a little bit into the ground just to make sure it's absolutely flat, and then put the water heater on it. That box is perfectly level, and the water heater is now able to be at exactly the right height for where those holes are. The only thing I've got to do now is clean out those holes. They're cast iron, and all the fittings that are going in are plastic, so the cast iron will just strip them in unless it's really clean. So I'm going to get a file and just make sure those holes are perfect.
That's amazing.
Cool, eh? Really nicely made.
A lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stars are just starting to come out.
Starry, starry night.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next week.